I want to visit my mom, but when I saw my fiancé's truck at her gate and heard what he said inside, it was supposed to be a surprise. I hadn't seen Mom in over a month, and with my wedding just 4 weeks away, I wanted to spend some quiet time with her. No dress fittings, no guest lists, just mother-daughter tea and her signature peach pie. I pulled up the winding hill toward her farmhouse. The autumn leaves had started to turn, casting golden light across the gravel. But as I turned the final bend, I hit the brakes. No. Parked in front of her gate was a familiar dark blue pickup, Josh's truck. My fiancé. Why was he here? Josh had told me he had a late meeting with a supplier across town. Some shipping delay or warehouse issue. I hadn't paid close attention. He'd been so distant lately, buried in work, too tired to talk, and rarely home before midnight. I chalked it up to pre-wedding stress. So when I decided on a whim to visit Mom that evening, I didn't think twice. Until I saw his truck. There it was, parked just inside the rusted gate of her driveway, its taillights still faintly warm. My stomach flipped. I slowed the car and pulled over quietly, 3 houses down. My fingers trembled as I turned off the ignition. I sat there for a full minute, staring at that familiar pickup. What was he doing here? He had never mentioned visiting my mother. In fact, he always acted vaguely uncomfortable around her, as if he was forcing politeness through clenched teeth. And she, in turn, had always kept their conversations brief and tightly wound. So why was he here alone at night when I wasn't? I got out of the car and crept along the side path that wrapped behind the row of hedges. The air was cool and smelled faintly of burning leaves. My heart pounded in my chest, louder than my footsteps on the gravel. The porch light was off. Odd. Mom always left it on after sunset. I took the stairs slowly, my breath shallow, and noticed the front door, not locked, not even latched, just slightly ajar, like it had been left that way on purpose. Inside, the house was dim. A lamp in the living room glowed faintly, and I could hear voices coming from down the hall, his voice, low and agitated. And then hers. I froze just beside the doorframe, where the shadows cloaked me, and listened. I can't keep doing this, Margaret, Josh said, his tone laced with tension. She's starting to ask questions. If she finds out. There was a pause. I didn't breathe. Then my mother's voice, calm but cold. She won't. We've come too far to let it all fall apart now. The words hit me like a slap. Margaret. He had used her first name. Not your mom or Mrs. Anderson, but Margaret. Familiar. Like they weren't just hiding something, but had been partners in it. I stepped back, nearly stumbling off the porch. My fingers gripped the handrail, knuckles white. Every instinct in my body screamed to barge in and demand the truth. But instead, I turned and fled. Because in that moment, I wasn't ready for answers. I was still trying to believe this wasn't happening. I backed away, heart thudding in my throat, and sat behind a tree on the side of the house. They were still talking, unaware I was outside. Josh's voice turned colder. If she ever finds out what really happened to her father. She won't, my mother cut him off. Not unless you mess it up. I couldn't breathe. What did Josh know about my father? He had died when I was 9. Supposedly a car crash. Supposedly alone. But why would Josh, my fiancé, be talking about it with my mother behind my back? I left before they saw me. Drove until my hands stopped shaking. That night, I acted normal. I didn't ask about the meeting. I didn't mention the truck. I just stared at him across the dinner table, wondering. How long has he known my mother? How long has... I checked my phone records. 3 weeks ago, Josh had called her at midnight. Again 2 days later. They had been talking without telling me. Something deeper was buried in their silence. And I was going to dig it up. Back at Mom's a few days later, I pretended everything was fine. I told her I was looking for old photos for a slideshow for the wedding. While she rested, I climbed into the attic. It was cluttered with memories, dusty trunks, childhood drawings, and old military gear. In one trunk, I found a shoebox tied with ribbon. Inside, a faded photo of my mom with a man who was not my father. An engagement ring. A letter signed only, J. And a police report I'd never seen before. Case closed. Accidental overdose. David Hammond. My father hadn't died in a crash. When I confronted her, she looked older than I had ever seen her, fragile, like porcelain that had been dropped one too many times but never shattered. She didn't answer right away. She just stared out the window at nothing. Then, slowly, her eyes welled up with tears that she refused to let fall. "He was abusive," she whispered. Her voice cracked as if the words themselves hurt to speak. "He wasn't always like that, but near the end, something shifted. Pills. Paranoia. He locked himself in the garage for hours. He said people were following him, that I was poisoning his food. I was scared, Clara. I didn't know what else to do. I felt like I was underwater, her words distant, warped, crashing over me. But why did you lie to me about how he died?" I asked. "And why does Josh know about it?" She went quiet again. Her silence answered more than words ever could. Then she turned to face me fully. Her hands trembled in her lap. "You were 9 years old," she said. "You adored him. I couldn't let you grow up with that version of your father. So I rewrote it. Said it was an accident. A crash. And Josh," her voice lowered, barely audible now, "Josh was there that night. He was the one. Who found him?" I blinked. My head spun. "Wait, Josh wasn't someone you met later?" She shook her head. "No. He was 16. He lived next door. After his mother passed, I helped him. For a time, he was like family." I backed away. My world felt like it was folding in on itself. They had both been lying to me for years. Josh wasn't just my fiancé. He was my mother's unofficial foster son, a boy she had raised in secret, a boy who had become entangled in my family long before I ever knew him. And now I had to question everything. Was our meeting really coincidence? Had I been a target all along? The thought made my skin crawl. My hands shook as I searched our apartment later that night. I knew there was something else, some clue that would make it all click. And I found it. Hidden at the bottom of his locked drawer was a second phone. It wasn't his regular number. This one had only a handful of contacts, and one of them was saved as M. I opened the messages. "She's starting to remember. Stay close. Don't let her near the policy file. If she learns about the insurance, we're done." I dropped the phone. Strategic. Calculated. I wasn't his partner. I was his assignment. And Mom? She had been playing the same game. The next morning, I drove to the bank alone. My hands were clammy as I opened the safe deposit box under my father's name. It hadn't been touched in years. Inside were the usual things: an old watch, a family Bible, some handwritten notes. And then I saw it, an envelope marked policy. I pulled it out and read every line. It was a life insurance document, updated just 6 months before my father's death. My mother was listed as the primary beneficiary, and alongside her was a line that read, "Guardian of minor child." That wasn't me. And then another name caught my eye, Angela Bennett, Josh's mother. She had been listed as a witness to the policy change. It was too perfect, too clean, too orchestrated. Josh had been planted in my life. Or perhaps worse, he had never left it. Just waited in the wings, guided by my mother until the moment was right. I wasn't a fiancé. I was the final piece of their long-running lie. I couldn't carry it alone anymore. I hired a private investigator, quiet, discreet, and expensive. I handed him the phone, the policy, the old letters, and the medical reports I had started pulling together. He listened, took notes, nodded slowly. 2 weeks later, he came back with the final blow. The emergency call for my father's death had been placed at 1:14 a.m. Paramedics didn't arrive until after 3 o'clock, which meant someone knew he was dying and chose not to help. That was enough. The police reopened the case. Quietly. The prosecutor wanted to avoid media attention, but the charges were serious. Josh was arrested first: fraud, concealment, and obstruction. My mother wasn't charged criminally. Too much time had passed. Too little hard evidence remained, but she faced civil liability. She didn't deny any of it. And I didn't testify against her. But I didn't protect her either. They had built a house of lies and called it love. And when it collapsed, I was the one still standing, bleeding, but breathing. I sold the farmhouse, the land, everything that held their shadows. I called off the wedding. Quietly. Without ceremony. No explanation to the guests, no refunds, no calls. I deleted Josh's number. Blocked his accounts. Erased every shared file, every playlist, every trace. All except for one thing. The shoebox I'd found in Mom's attic. I kept it. And one day, I added my own photo inside. It was taken at the edge of the ocean, me alone, standing barefoot in the sand, wind in my hair, sun setting behind me. No makeup. No filter. Just me. Not broken. Not lost. But free. Because the truth didn't destroy me. It freed me.